I went to a Critical Role live show and we're going to talk about it. What is it like going to a live show for an actual play? One as large as Critical Role that people love. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. And there's actually a lot that you may not have expected, or you just want to know more about it before you splurge on a ticket and a trip. So first things first, I paid about $100 for a ticket and I got it the night before the show. So it was a resale ticket, which dealing with StubHub and Ticketmaster and all that was its own fiasco, but I'm not going to blame Critical Role or put any of that on the show, but that was a bit annoying with support and everything like that. But I bought a resale ticket for about $100. I had floor seating. However, I was in the last section on the floor about halfway through. So row 7 in the last section on the floor. And I'll talk about that a little bit as well. Driving there was about 30 minutes from where I was staying, and it was about 30 minutes from the convention center for Gen Con. So the people there for Gen Con who were near the convention center had to drive 30 minutes to go to the Fisher Event Center, which is where it was. Now, luckily, the guy that I was staying with, shout out Sloan, let me just take his car. So I was able to take the car, drive myself there, instead of having to do an Uber or a Lyft, because that was looking to be around $40 without a surge when I had looked at it the night before. So saved me a lot of money with that, because it could have been $40 either way. Now we're approaching 200. I ended up buying a shirt that was 40. Then we would have been at 220. I did put 25 in the gas tank. All this to say that once you add a hot dog and a drink and all of that, even with only a $100 ticket, you're gonna have spent between $200 and $250. Now, you can get cheaper tickets. There were some for $68. They were kind of off on the side where you didn't have full view, and there were others. But I will say, even in my seat, and you'll realize this, I'll maybe throw some B-roll up, you basically are looking at only the Jumbotrons, unless you're in like the first couple of rows. You can't see them on the stage. I didn't see them on the stage at all, unless I like tried to lean around and look, and I was far enough back that I just saw like their bodies, you know, it wasn't like detail. When you're going to this live show, yes, you're in the arena, you have that atmosphere, which we'll get into, but you're not really going to be watching them on the stage unless you splurge on those excellent tickets. You're going to be looking at Jumbotrons, but they did have two up on the sides of the stage, left and right, and then they had the big box one in the middle that had, of course, ones on the left, the right, and the center facing back. So I was in a spot that, awkwardly enough, kind of hurt looking up this way, so I had to look at the smaller one that was on the right of the stage. But it worked out. I still saw everything. It was cool. But just know that when you're going, you're going to be watching it. You're just going to be in the arena while you're watching it on a screen. So now let's talk about that atmosphere thing. It gets crazy. I was kind of shocked. It was like being at a sporting event. The amount of cheering and hollering of names and things like that. The woman next to me was going berserk over stuff. I mean, doing all the woo, 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 like all sorts of noises and chanting and everything. And I had seen complaints online that like people just laughed too much or they cheered too much off of like every line. That didn't really happen. Basically, every time it happened, it felt like a right moment for people to cheer and get excited and things like that. Might have been one or two that were questionable. For the most part, the crowd landed correctly on the moments to get excited and all that sort of stuff. Basically, anytime there's a crit, every time there's a massive amount of damage, anytime the enemies did a massive amount of damage, it was like a big gasp. It made it feel intense. I myself am a relatively calm guy. I'm not really the type that's going to be going crazy at a sporting event. And there were multiple times where all of a sudden I looked down and be like, I'm clapping. Like, I'm getting invested in this. So that was a very cool aspect of it. Now for a different look at it in terms of the actual show. Again, it's far away. You're not really seeing them. And it's more structured, I think, than the online things, which makes sense. They have a time frame. Like, they can't keep going. They have the venue for a set time frame. So it's pretty structured, and you can kind of tell at moments. It's not always super apparent, but there are definitely moments you're like, okay, yeah, no, they're about to move into this next stage because this is the transition period where they need to keep the show rolling and the show moving. It seems like, and this is all speculation, there are more upfront beats that Matt has shared with them for something like this than like when they're just at home online or whatever it is, right? Like there, they might not really know where they're going at all, what could happen. Whereas here, I feel like it's kind of like, hey, there might be a little more detail shared. Again, speculation, may not be the case, but it just felt like the players almost knew when it was time to shift. But it might just be a communication where he says, hey, just go with what I'm saying because we got to get this ball rolling. So either way, it was still cool, but you could kind of pick up on that a little bit. I will say, soon as the fight ended, I could sense, because it was after like 11:30 at that point, I was like, this is about to end, I'm going to go. So I didn't hear the like words after the fight. I didn't hear the goodbyes. They finished off the final beast, and then I got up, walked out, and I barely beat the traffic. Like, when I was exiting, all the people were pouring out of the building, so think about that when you're going. The traffic will be crazy getting out, just like any other event. Moving on to Daggerheart. I enjoyed most of it, But there's one thing in particular that really stood out to me. Other than the fact that like I don't know all the abilities and all these sorts of things, it was easy to pick up on this person's attacking. They would describe it narratively and all that, so it all makes sense. I like the team up aspect. That was pretty neat. But with the way that it flows and the fact that the enemies can go so frequently, and especially in that combat in particular, so I might be skewed a little bit, this one particular enemy, because I'm not trying to spoil a bunch, when he hit, he could give a stress and then hit again. Like he could just keep attacking. He did it like 4 or 5 times in a row the first time. And so it took forever to get back to players. And then they go once or twice, then they roll with fear. It goes back to them. And it felt like Robbie and Travis barely did anything the entire 4.5 hour session. And I mean that. Like narratively, it was more about Fern and things like that early on. And then as it continued, it still felt like they weren't really doing much. And a little bit with Robbie because they were trying to get him there. But then in the combat, it really felt like some people in a hour-long combat, hour and a half long combat went twice, maybe? And it like Matt had to be like, hey, you haven't gone in a while. Like, do you want to? It didn't have that structure. And so you're like, here, I'm at this live show, and 2 of the performers aren't really doing anything. Like they're up there at the table. And so it was weird. It was a little odd for that because I don't think that's not going to happen in D&D. They're going to have their system. They're going to rotate through all the players, all the NPCs and enemies, all that sort of stuff over and over and over. Whereas this is like, oh, let's do this. Oh, and I'll team up with you and this and that, this and that. And then they go around and then one of those people is going again. And then there's the enemy going a bunch. That part threw me off because I wanted something from everybody. I wanted to experience a lot out of everybody, and it wasn't. Like half the cast you got a ton of, then maybe 2 others you got a decent amount, and then, you got a little bit where you didn't get any much at all. So it was fun though. Like I had a legitimately good time. It's expensive. Again, all in all, I didn't even mention the parking, which I think I got scammed on, but you add that in and you can expect you're paying $200. You get a t-shirt, it's spending $250, right? So for that, it's cool for an experience. I'm glad I did it. I also made a lot of content out of it. Go check my, shorts and TikTok and whatnot. But would I do it again? Maybe for a very special thing. Like for instance, I think the atmosphere at the wedding is going to be incredible. And that's something that I would still be like, yes, I would pay to go do that for that atmosphere alone, that experience, which is why I did this one, the experience. I'm like, I have the chance. I'm in the same city at the same time as Critical Role Live Show. I'm going to go do it. So I did. I don't know that I would do it again in that scenario because it's very pricey. And again, you're watching it on the screen, but it's really cool to do at least once and to realize how invested people are. I'm hearing people mention these things and all these plot points and connections and all this related to what's going on the screen and getting excited and cheering and clapping and shouting things. And it was like, this is insane. It was super cool. I'm going to cut it off there. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts if you were there. If you're excited to go to one, was this helpful at all? Share it down in the comments. And if you want to see more content from me related to nerd culture, Critical Role, Dungeons & Dragons, everything like that, make sure to click that subscription button. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.